get my... Forget about it. We're all screwed. And here's the proof. We're all screwed. Here's the proof. I left out the word up. We're all screwed up. Here's the proof. Okay, I cannot tell a lie. Did I knowingly leave out a word to get your attention? Did I intentionally leave out the word up to get your attention? Well, I guess so. Why? Well, you've heard it said that when the teacher or when the student is ready, the teacher will appear, right? Well, sometimes the teacher has to stand on the desk and yell, sex, drugs, and rock and roll to get the student's attention so they can appear in the same place at the same time. Okay, I guess that's what I was doing. Don't worry. Don't get out your prepping list and start taking notes on how many rolls of toilet paper you need to have ready by such and so date. We're screwed up. We're all screwed up. What? What about Brenda over there? Brenda's not screwed up? Why is Brenda not screwed up? Susie, who wants to be more like Brenda. Susie, who feels as if she's accomplished nothing in life, especially when in comparison to Brenda. Strong, independent woman who is entirely self-made, put herself through college, pulled herself up by her own bootstraps, put herself through college. Maybe not a very good one, maybe not one that most people have heard of, but it was enough to get her to that excellent graduate school where she could get that MBA, go out into the workforce and kick down every door in front of her, knock over the 4 or 5 men that were holding it so that she couldn't get through, own her own company, get a 6-digit income on her own, acquire a 7-digit net worth by the time she was 50, and doesn't put up with any crap, especially from men who want to keep her in her place. Susie, why aren't you more like Brenda? Maybe because you weren't violently raped in your youth, often repeatedly. And you haven't put up such a guard, such a thick veneer as a form of defense so as not to show any form of vulnerability, especially to all those men trying to keep her in her place as they are Brenda, out of fear that should they see vulnerability, Brenda might be attacked again. Or maybe you have. Maybe you drown that crap with alcohol. Maybe you repress it so deep, and maybe you isolate. Everybody's got a story. What's that, Susie? Okay, let's forget about Brenda for now. What about Peter over there? Peter, they call him Perfect Peter. Why wouldn't they? Look at him. He's a deacon in his church. You can say Matthew 4 verse 7 and he can spit it out verbatim as it says in the Bible. But he's not a fanatic. He just understands his work. And he takes part in the real world aside from his theological views. And he's got a beautiful wife and he's got a beautiful son and he's got a beautiful daughter and everybody's healthy and happy. And when people from the congregation get in touch with him and say, Peter, I just need someone to talk to and you always have all the answers. Can we get together? Peter's always saying yes. He's always there. He's always available. He always knows what to say. Why can't we be more like Peter? Well, would you really want to be if you found out that Peter and his wife don't even speak to each other? They often go to the same place but take separate cars. You might not want to be just like Peter if you understood that he has absolutely no relationship with his children, especially his son. Probably because Peter is setting the same practically impossible expectations for perfection upon his son that his father set upon him. Expectations that could never be met and yet were so painful, so debilitating that they caused Perfect Pete to actually run away from his father's house, not as a prodigal son, but as a hurt child who was tired of feeling the pain, tired of having that pain inflicted, and the only way he knew to prevent more infliction of the pain was to run away. But he had already developed the cycle of trying to be perfect at every single thing he did, even though he knew it was never going to be good enough to please Pop. Yet he is perhaps not actively, but at least subconsciously making the decision, whether he knows it or not, to impose those same expectations of practically impossible perfection upon his own son. He became the man he said he never wanted to be, the man he swore he'd never be. Do we need to continue, Sally? Sally, do we need to continue with example after example to make my point that we're all screwed up? It's true. Everybody has a story. We just don't always know it because we're all caught up in so much of our own. We're looking for the answers, oftentimes so much so that we will, project upon others, see things that aren't there, not allow others to get close because we view them as the ones who harmed us even though they're not, and the cycle continues and it continues and it continues and it continues. What's the answer? Well, I would be willing to say that anybody who claims to have it is a bold-faced liar, and I'd probably get as far away from them as possible. And that's my admission that I don't have them. I don't know any more than you. But daily, I seek them to be a better person myself, to make sure I'm not continuing some cyclical learned behavior that is going to harm those that are dear to me, near and dear, be they my family or just friends and acquaintances. Trying to break toxic cycles, I guess. Trying to learn new, healthy behaviors. Because the real difference between all of us is this. I honestly believe, and this is just more of an opinion than a fact, that most of us are really doing the best we can to get through this experience we know as life. Some people are able to recognize their isms. Some people aren't. Upon recognizing some of their isms, maybe some things that they would like to fix about themselves, some people make a decision to get better. They seek help. Some people don't. They continue to blame everyone else and everything else and the rest of the world, and they will allow that resentment and that pain experienced at the hands of one individual affect any relationship they have or could have for the rest of their lives. So, if you've been following the channel for a while, which many of you have, you know I am a writer. I'm also a very avid reader. I've often been approached by other people. They oh, you're a writer, so am I. I'll often, when they start talking about writing, I often ask, so what are you currently reading? And the most common answer I get is this: oh my gosh, I don't have time to read because I'm too busy writing. Wrong. Come on, that's not gonna hold water. Stephen King, who's arguably the greatest writer of all time, even if you don't like his genre, if you ever read any of his work, you'll be like, oh my God, I had no clue dude could actually write that good. And I guarantee you're going to read more than just one. He says in his book on writing, where he tells all he knows, except for, I bet you he held back a few secrets, but all he claims to know about the craft, he says, to be a good writer, you really only have to do two things: read a lot and write a lot. And he says even that reading is a craft that cannot be taught. It must be learned. And it's learned from doing, from reading and writing. And he says himself in that book that anybody who claims to be a writer that says they don't read because they don't have time to read probably isn't a very good writer. So I read these words many years ago and I took them to heart, and I said, you know, Stephen King says this. I didn't get a degree in English literature, and I don't have any advanced education past a bachelor's. But if I read enough, write enough, maybe I can get pretty good at it. And wow, when I read those words, I was down and out in a third world country, couldn't figure out how to feed my 2-year-old little boy. Not bragging, bro, just saying I've implemented it, and everything you see is mine. Yes, including that mountain back there. Not really. Okay, changed my world. And as part of a combination of my avid reading, I read 50 to 100 books a year. In the years where I actually will write a full-length novel, it's closer to 50. In the years where I don't write a full-length novel, maybe just a bunch of short stories or short story collections, I read closer to 100. There will be 2 or 3 books a year that I read that actually touch me to the degree to where I feel it's worthy of coming on here and talking about them. I just read one. I'm going to tell you the name of the book. It's called Walks Along the Pier, Tales of a Wounded Healer, and is written by a gentleman named James A. Stump, who's an LMFT, whatever that means. He's a He's actually a retired 3-star general. Actually, he's not. Okay, he's a licensed something. He's a psychotherapist. 30 seconds or less version. The tale of the wounded healer is this. Perhaps you've heard different versions of it because according to Mr. Stump, here in the book, this tale goes back centuries perhaps, but it's a tale of a military medic standing up on a hill looking down into the field of battle. And his comrades, his men, they're getting shot. They're getting killed by the enemy, and he can't stand it anymore. He sees this pain. He knows the pain they're in, so he does what it is he's trained to do and what he was led by a higher power to do, what he was created to do. He goes down onto the field of battle, and he goes around and he starts healing people. He starts fixing up their wounds. Well, the enemy sees this. They're like, hey, that guy's down there making everybody better. Let's get him. So they direct their aim at the healer. He's getting shot, hit everywhere. Despite this, despite the pain, despite the agony, he continues to go out along the field of battle. He goes to his comrades and he continues to heal them. And it's to the point to where he doesn't even have to ask them, where were you hit? Where does it hurt? He instinctively knows what to do. And while he's healing them, while he's making them feel better, he's getting shot. He's continuing to get injured. He's getting wounded. And he makes it to this next soldier and he's healing him up. And the soldier looks up at him in awe and he says, how are you able to do this? And the healer looks at him and he says, because I know where it hurts. That's the tale of the wounded healer. And in about almost 400 pages, about 390 pages, which I blew through in 3 days in the time that I allow for reading, I got to see firsthand how this healer has been wounded to a degree and how he has used his own pain to alleviate pain in others. And more than just self-seeking knowledge of why am I so screwed up and what do I do? What's the answer for me? I was reminded of something that I preach, but often rarely remember to practice. And that is seek first to understand rather than to be understood. In this book, which is a work of fiction, but which I would conjure is probably largely based upon Mr. Stump's personal experience with particular clients throughout the years, or maybe combinations of clients he would mold into one fictitious character to get his point across. I would see people that I knew who had the same isms as the people in the book. And at first I thought, oh yeah, man, this is great. I'm going to finally know what's wrong with that guy or with that woman. That person that every time I'm around him just makes me feel icky. By the way, and I've got a dozen different bookmarks in here. I'm not going to, draw this out so long that I read to you every page that's bookmarked. And I don't even need to look to remember this. But I found it interesting that Mr. Stump points out in here the importance of paying attention to the way other people make you feel in their presence. Because as a counselor, he's willing to bet that that's how those people make others feel when in their presence. So this lets us know it's not always us. Let's say there's somebody that every time they come around, this is what I use as a gauge. I pay attention to how I feel after people leave my presence or after I leave their presence. Do I feel relatively the same after I've spent time with this person? Do I feel better in some way? Do I feel elated? Like, wow, the world's a better place because I just spent 20 minutes talking to that guy or that girl. Or do I feel angry? Do I feel frustrated? Do I feel as if I was offended in some sort of passive-aggressive nature that was certainly meant as an offense, but I'm questioning myself in that. Listen, that's probably how those people make other people feel in their presence as well. So it lets us know it's not just me. But at the same time, the story will evolve to where we get the understanding that, I really need to pay attention to how other people feel in my presence as well. Because that's really saying something about me. So each case study, as it were, allows you to see some of these behaviors, what we might call toxic, or defense mechanisms or whatnot, and others, But if we're honest and if we're really looking through truly open eyes, we're also able to see so many of these isms in ourselves. Now, I use the example of a, kick the door down, pulled herself up by her bootstraps kind of woman, self-made, doesn't put up with crap, especially from men, came from nothing and went out there and became a strong, independent woman. Boy, did I learn a lot about strong, independent women in this book, and my views have changed. I'm talking about this book not because the gentleman clearly watches this channel. He did not ask me to do this. I am receiving no monetary compensation of any sort for this. This is not a sponsored product I'm promoting. I will put the link to this book, which is available on Amazon in ebook form or print form, as you can see, in the description box of this video, because I believe everybody out there who wants a little bit of help should read this book, okay? And I'm getting nothing in return from it, except maybe a grateful viewer or whatever. Okay, so anyway, my point of that is this. The strong, independent woman. I was reading the story of Maleficent in here. I don't want to give any spoilers, but he says something on here where the woman kept referring to herself as a strong, independent woman. And he said as a counselor, what that means is typically an abusive woman. I would have other choice words, but I'm like, he gets it. Yeah, he gets it. But when he got to the point that I never got, I was like, wow. I really need to eliminate some of those other terms I might have used to describe this sort of personality from my vocabulary in regard to these people, because I never realized how many of them were hurt, abused little girls who were putting up this front as a defense mechanism so that they would show no vulnerability, like I said at the beginning of the video, out of fear that the wrong wolf in sheep's clothing, the wrong fox in the hen house, might see that vulnerability and attack again and take that woman back to the most painful place she's ever been in her life. Now, it doesn't justify her coming across as so abrasive to everybody in her life, especially to males. It does make it understanding. It makes it understandable, and it makes me feel personally more empathic towards those people. It doesn't mean that listen, if you're strong and independent, you don't need to tell people. What I've found in life, that everybody who goes around talking about how smart they are usually aren't. Everybody who goes around talking about how much they have usually don't have much. Everybody who goes on and on about all the great things they did probably didn't accomplish much at all. So if you need to go around talking about how strong and independent you are, what's that really say? And I thought about that, and I think, who are some of the strongest, most independent women in my life, aside from my wife? Thought of a family friend, Janice. Shout out, Janice, Will, all your kids. Lieutenant Colonel in the United States Army. 3-time combat tour veteran. Moved to America when she was 12 and didn't even know how to speak English. Learned when she was here. Didn't have the money to go to college, because she didn't come from a family with wealth, and she didn't really want to go into debt, take out student loans, so she joined the ROTC program. They paid for college. She became a commissioned officer. She's a true American hero. One of the strongest, most independent women I've ever known. And guess what? When she's out of uniform, she's the sweetest girl you'd ever meet. She never refers to herself as strong and independent. She doesn't need to, because she is. I feel no hatred towards me because of my gender. And I was an E4 in the Army. I was like almost as low as you can get. And she's like way up here. She doesn't look down at me. No need. She's truly strong and independent. Now, I'm not going to venture into her childhood. And she's probably had things happen to her as well. Not so pleasant as we all have. But this is an example of an individual who, if at times in life work needed to be done to be the person she wanted to be and not project her anger and her pain on the world in front of her, she got that help. That's just one example, and I hope I didn't embarrass her here, and I could think of many others. I got a friend, whatever. So this book opened my eyes. When you read the stories in this book, and every single one of them are worth reading, you will see in each person characterized in each story someone you know, someone you might care for, someone you might not care for so much. but you're also going to see in each story part of yourself. It's going to let you know about maybe some of the work you've put off, some of the work that you still need to do yourself. I can't recommend it enough. And I've only shared a couple of examples with Perfect Pete, whose name was something else from the book, who had the son issues because of his father issues, which he was continuing to carry forward. And then, of course, Brenda, that's not her name. In the book, it's Maleficent. Actually, that's not her name either. I don't want to give too many spoilers. But I walked away with this as well. We are all so connected, for better or worse, whether we want to realize it or not. And it's often the people that repel us the most to whom we are connected the most as well. And it could be that same pain, that same abuse, that same trauma experienced from both that is repelling us from that person and repels them from us. And the whole time we have no clue we have more in common with each other than we could ever imagine. Seek first to understand rather than to be understood. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with understanding your own isms as well and knowing where to go and how to get some help. Walks Along the Pier, Tales of a Wounded Healer by retired 3-star, no, that's not true, James Stump, LMFT. Highly recommend it. Again, not sponsored. I'm receiving no compensation for this. James Stump has no clue this video is even being made. I'm not even going to tag him. Let's just see if he finds out about it. But folks, I read up to 100 books a year. 2 or 3 of them I'd recommend to others. This is one of them. I will put the link in the description box below. Check it out. It's well worth the read. We're all screwed up. Doesn't mean that it's hopeless. There's a lot of hope. There's a lot of hope. Where there's life, there's hope. While we're still here and we're still living, let's take action. Make that hope for a better way a reality. See you for more next time.